to it. This week, gentlemen, the name on the marquee has got to be Khalil Roundtree Jr., who this past weekend in the co-main event of UFC Fight Night defeated Anthony Lionheart Smith by TKO in round number 3, the official time, 56 seconds of the third round. Mark, start us off here. Give us your take of Khalil showing out in the biggest spot of his career.
He sure did. Khalil strikes the way that characters strike in movies. Like, you're not supposed to be able to seemingly load up and generate as much power from all spots with as much balance as Khalil Roundtree does. Like, there's no bracing, there's no planting. I mean, obviously at times there is, but like plenty of times there's not. And the power is still like death power. He is so controlled with his shots and the power behind them at all times. I mean, he's really special to watch strike, and he's frightening to watch strike, which we've said before. And I think he has now become the guy that we all always thought he could be. Like, not to say he can't be beat by an elite wrestler or even some other great striker, because he could be. But his overall game, mental and physical, has reached the point now where he is a true threat for anyone in this division. And even in the KO here, I must have rewound this thing like 20 consecutive times. He generates power that it doesn't look like he should be able to generate from the way that he threw those 2 shots. But he has it, man. He just has that natural nuclear bomb power. And now he seems to have found the full game technique wise and the understanding of it to go with it. And he has become a complete threat. And as for Anthony Smith, I mean, he more or less came out here and he tried to strike with Khalil, which was never going to go well. He was the bigger man in the fight. I thought we'd see way more crashing inside and trying to clinch and pushing Khalil to the fence and leaning on him and trying to sap his energy. You know, maybe you get him off balance and you take him down from there. But we didn't really see any of that. And, you know, to be fair, a couple times he did try to clinch and Khalil spun him right around. So maybe he just felt like, wow, I'm not the stronger man here and this is not going to work. So he just felt sort of lost, maybe, Anthony Smith. I don't know. But either way, it was a masterclass from Khalil Roundtree, and it was awesome to see. And that the finishing shot of him just hovering over Anthony Smith with his fist in the air in case he needed it was a hell of a shot.
Yeah, man. Omar, let's bring you in here now. Khalil Roundtree, his forte is Muay Thai. Muay Thai is also an area of passion for you, to say the least. What were your thoughts, given your perspective as one who trains in the art of 8 limbs, of Khalil's big win here?
I love watching Khalil Roundtree fight, man. His Muay Thai has, over the years, become so incredible to watch, so devastating to watch, and his creativity in the cage, I think, creativity in Muay Thai, I think, is what really separates a lot of these guys at the top level, because Muay Thai, you know, there's a lot of fundamentals that you carry that everybody carries throughout. Some guys stick to the fundamentals and make it their own. Other guys use the fundamentals to break rules and do kind of their own thing. You could say Chase, actually, Mike, is one of those guys, right? He's doing a lot of spinning, a lot of moving, a lot of dancing. You wouldn't necessarily look at him and look at other guys traditionally who fight Muay Thai and say that they do the same thing. Chase has definitely made his thing his own, and Khalil has kind of done the same thing. You know, Mark, when you're talking about the power of Khalil, for me, that's a Muay Thai game. Like, one of the things that we get taught a lot is consistency. You don't have to throw 100% of your power, but if you're going to throw 40% of your power, you're going to throw 40% of your power the entire time you're in that fight. Mm-hmm. You don't lose power in that fight. You don't go down. If you want to go up, you can go up, but you can't go down. So you have to pick a fight, pick a pace and stick to that pace. And I think unless somebody is able to get Khalil off of his rhythm and off of his pace, I think we're going to see a lot more of that consistent power going forward. As far as the clinch game is concerned, the clinch game was beautiful from Khalil. And I think Anthony Smith did try to do something in there with him. And he lost his head position. I think the fact that Khalil was the shorter fighter, in there, was working to his advantage, because he was able to put his head below Anthony Smith's chin and completely control those situations. Not to mention that Khalil is a fucking animal of a person, like a true specimen physically. And he's also, Muay Thai is very much a clinch game as well. Like if he's adept in the clinch, the standing clinch, I mean, what happened in there was not a surprise to me in the least. Anthony Smith, I thought, should have gone for way more takedowns than he did. The clinch game was also, I think, not going to work for him the same way the stand-up wasn't going to work for him. And I thought Roundtree put on such a performance, such a mix-up of body strikes, head strikes. We see a lot of guys head hunting a lot, and Khalil was able to not get stuck in that, especially with Anthony Smith hurt. It was a perfect performance as far as I was concerned. I was super happy to see all that Khalil come out that night.
Yeah, I've always liked Anthony Lionheart Smith, but I've also always loved Khalil Roundtree since he kind of came onto the scene as a middleweight and now light heavyweight in the UFC. Just knowing his story, I feel for Anthony Smith, man, a guy who challenged for the title, but at one point in the middle of this fight, I was like, Anthony Smith is still trying to stand and trade with Khalil Roundtree. I don't know if this is the game plan. It seems like it kind of is. I don't know if this is the best game plan. Of course, I'm not a trained mixed martial artist. And of course, Anthony Smith has got to believe in his skill set to the max, to the fullest. So I'm sure he's got to go in there with the mindset of like, this guy, everybody thinks that he's this powerful Muay Thai striker. Well, guess what? I'm gonna change some minds here tonight. And he bet on himself, and as well he should, but it did not pay off this time.
I don't disagree with that take at all. I will say though, like there has to be, I think for every fighter, there has to be a point where you go, all right, well, maybe I was wrong. And I feel like the end of that first round when Anthony Smith's face got broken open, I feel like that might have been the point where he's like, maybe I should do something else. This might be the time to switch up the game plan a little bit. But he doubled down and then tripled down in the third round.
Even if he felt like, oh, I got clipped there, I just, I fucked up, wrong read, whatever. By mid-round 2, it's like you don't want to tell a guy he has to be desperate because obviously there's got to be better game plans than that. But still, at a certain point in a fight, when you're outgunned, it's like, okay, I do have to get a little desperate to close this distance or nothing is going to change. And I just feel like that never clicked for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, let's talk about what is next for these two light heavyweights. Let's start with the winner here, Khalil Roundtree Jr., once again, coming off of now the biggest win of his career in terms of name, popularity, and Anthony Smith. Mark, give us the name, if you were the matchmaker of the UFC, who you would be matching up Khalil with next.
So I'll give you two routes. I'm wondering if he is the man who's going to get asked to step in at UFC 297 against Alexander Rakic. Rakic was supposed to fight Blachowicz. Blachowicz has pulled out. Rakic called out Yuri. Yuri said he was down, but he needed another month or two. And the UFC still has not pulled Rakic off of this card. So I don't know if they're going to go the Rakic-Yuri route and say, okay, we'll bump it to February or March, or if they just really want him on that card. And if they do, Khalil Roundtree may not be a bad choice because he seemingly did not take much damage. And that's a really big opportunity for him. And I'm sure he'd jump at that. If they're going to go Rakic-Yuri, then I will say Nikita Krylov. I feel like I've been talking about him a bit recently, saying how he's sitting there without an opponent. It has been a very long time. I don't really get why there is no fight being mentioned for him, but if there's still not, him and Khalil certainly would be a fun one as well.
What about you, Omar? Any other ideas?
Yeah, I wonder what the weight cut is for Khalil because, not to say, I mean, it would be a kind of a quick turnaround for him to fight Rakic.
Rakic, yeah.
I think it's Rakic.
Rakic. It'd be a quick turnaround for him if we're talking about him having to go through a whole other weight cut.
Like 40 days basically between fights.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he looked like a big boy in there last week. So it's definitely possible that it might be too close for him. Maybe it's something that he has under control. Maybe he doesn't balloon up as much as it looks like he does in the first place, but he looks like he walks around like big. So, My pick was the loser of the Ankalaev and Johnny Walker fight coming up in the near future. It just seemed like that would be a nice little progression for Khalil to keep knocking him down.
Yeah, man. All right. Now let's shift our focus to where Anthony Smith could be going from here. Omar, go first on this one. Okay, Mark. Something's happening.
Yeah, that's Mark. Are you touching your microphone or something? Because your shit is out of control.
What was happening?
It was like when you were like moving stuff.
I wasn't doing anything.
Don't touch your computer.
Don't touch the computer.
Just don't do it.
Hands up. Hands up for the rest of the time.
That's not good.
Okay, Omar, give us a name for where Anthony Smith could go next at 205.
Okay, so for Anthony Smith, I had him against the winner of Dominic Reyes and Carlos Ulberg. That is assuming that Dominic Reyes survives that fight and subsequently doesn't retire. So
have him and Reyes fought?
They have not.
Nope.
I will say this in terms of that choice there. I would love him against Reyes. I think that would be a nice matchup.
I agree.
Point. Not so much against Ulberg, because Ulberg looks like a fucking world beater at 205, and I don't want Anthony Smith to keep racking up these L's, man.
Well, according to Anthony Smith, he's the best light heavyweight in the world. So when that happens, you got to put him up against the best light heavyweights in the world.
Dude, I liked his take on John Jones, and he's a good analyst.
Oh, he's a really good analyst.
And his take on John Jones is like not wrong, I feel. What do you think?
What take?
No,
his take
that he can keep the belt.
No. Well, that is also true, and like respect. After he fought John, he was like, John is not great at any one thing, but he is the best at putting it all together. Like he's like his stand up by itself is not like he doesn't knock a lot of guys out. Yeah. He doesn't have the best power. There are better wrestlers than him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't buy that, to be honest.
You don't?
No, I don't. I think his wrestling is actually pretty elite. I think his ground game, his jiu-jitsu is pretty elite by itself, though. Like by itself, I think if you put him in a wrestling match, I think he fucks up probably a majority of people, even those who train wrestling. I think if you put him, and they have put him in jiu-jitsu competitions, and he has wrecked everybody in them. Now, when it comes to striking specifically, what I can tell you from what I have witnessed is I have witnessed him outstrike Glover Teixeira in an area where John Jones had no business outstriking Glover Teixeira. That actually happened.
Okay.
So,
I mean, not to get too bogged down on this, but I think the idea of the argument is that if you were to write down a list of all of the different attributes that go into MMA, you'd say wrestling, grappling, BJJ, striking, kickboxing, etc., and then say, next to that, write down the name of the best guy in the UFC at each of those things. John Jones probably wouldn't be in any of those first slots. But then at the bottom, you're like, who's the best at MMA? It's John Jones.
I see where you're going with it. I'm still not there. I don't buy it.
I see where you're going with it, too.
Yeah.
Across MMA, I guess not wrestling, but like at light heavyweight, when I'm saying during his prime run, was there a better one?
But here's my there's guys who he also doesn't use his wrestling the way that guys who are that elite at wrestling have to use their wrestling. Like I think there's a difference to it. Like I think John Jones is an elite wrestler. Like I said, if you put him in a wrestling match, I think he does very well against elite wrestlers. But the way other elite wrestlers that you might automatically attribute the best wrestling to, perhaps like a Khabib or whatever, those guys had to use that skill set in order for them to win. John Jones is so fucking good at everything, he can do whatever the hell he wants.
I do totally agree with you that I think his wrestling and grappling are actually pretty fucking elite.
Yeah, the argument would be the kickboxing and the
back into port here.
Yes, that's fair.
What's that?
We need to steer the ship back into port here.
He's right. He's right, guys. He's right. All right, where were we here? Let's move on.
I will finish on one point. He also kicked DC in the face and knocked him out in that. So
he did. To circle us back, I will say that I also considered the winner of Dom Reyes and Carlos Ulberg, but I ultimately didn't go that route for the exact same thing that Mike just said. I was like, ooh, Dom Reyes would be fun. Ooh, Carlos Ulberg seems a little too violent. So instead, I said the winner of this weekend's fight between Dustin Jacoby and Alonzo Menafield.
The winner, you